I think it's normal for people who grew up playing video games to, at some point, entertain the prospect of making their own game. It's the same case for any other medium as well. If you consume enough media and you have some level of creative drive, I think it's an inescapable urge to want to create and share your own. Though many who consider making their own game are shot down in their first attempts, whether that be due to a lack of artistic ability, lack of experience coding, or simply lack of motivation. Additionally, the most popular games are often made by huge teams of people working on all aspects of the game, much like the large teams of people required to make movies. A lot of individuals prefer to stick to modding existing games rather than making their own for this reason, as it gives an already complete base to build off. But AAA game development is only one part of the games industry, even if it is the largest part. The other part is made up of indies, games made by smaller teams, oftentimes without a publisher. They usually aren't on the cutting edge of graphical fidelity, and they might not be as long or as complex as AAA games, but I would argue that indies today are superior to much of the catalog put out by the larger industry. I find the simpler gameplay styles necessitated by the lack of manpower to result in more focused, cohesive experiences, and I also find the stories told in indie games to be more interesting and boundary-pushing when it comes to the medium than 99% of AAA releases. But I want to focus on something else, and it's something that I think has been lost as standards for indies have increased over the years. So let's go back to the beginning, back to the game that is arguably the progenitor of indies and the reason they're so widespread today, a game called Cave Story. Cave Story is notable for being made entirely by one man over the course of 5 years in his free time, and having been released in 2004, it's been widely acknowledged as one of the first indie games ever released. The game itself is the epitome of a flawed masterpiece, held down by antiquated Metroidvania design despite the path through the game being relatively linear, as well as brutal difficulty spikes in the later stages of the game. Even so, the level design is consistently enjoyable to move through, the weapons all feel unique and well balanced, and the bosses are all memorable and fun to fight. And of course, the game's soundtrack is full of catchy chiptune classics that still sound good to this day. Even the revised soundtracks included in the game's re-releases can't stack up to the originals after all this time. Cave Story is quite the spectacle considering the circumstances of its release. A game of this quality made by a single person is something you don't see every day, or even every year. It's really inspiring to me that a single person with the right vision can make something this good and with such widespread appeal. That sense of inspiration is helped by the game's visual design, which is what I think we've lost as more games and more indies of higher quality release. I think we've lost the amateurish feel that a lot of early indies have, which sounds kind of judgmental, but I mean it in the best way possible. While it's always great to admire the beautiful art direction that comes out of games today, the simplistic pixel art and music on display in Cave Story make the game feel approachable and relatable, like the game wasn't made by a masterful artist with a level of skill far beyond my own. Playing this game for the first time made the prospect of making something myself feel so much more within my grasp than it ever had before in my life. Though Cave Story wasn't alone in making me feel this sense of inspiration around this time. Minecraft is another game that, despite its complex world generation algorithms and sophisticated multiplayer functionality, still had this sort of amateurish feeling to the visuals, and the freedom allowed by creative mode got me into trying to make my own creations. But probably the most influential game for me in this regard was Undertale. Thanks to its fairly simple visuals and the game's incredibly consistent quality throughout its runtime, the strength of its story really got my head going with ideas, though most of them weren't particularly original. But to get back on topic, I think the indie aesthetic is something that's been overlooked in the name of progress. It's treated as a given that visual styles in games should be as high fidelity as they can manage, but I think there's a certain charm to lower quality art direction, in just the same way that there's a charm to the quality of VHS recordings or old highly compressed YouTube videos. But more than there being a charm to it, I think it's also reassuring in a way. To someone like me who has very limited skill in terms of visual art, looking at modern indie games worked on by dedicated artists can be daunting to those who want to make something on their own, but feel like they don't have the right skills for it. But what I've taken from games like Cave Story is that you don't necessarily need that talent to make great games. You just need dedication and the right inspiration. For me, this is where that inspiration bears fruit. And now that I've done everything short of just saying it, here's my announcement. I made a game. I've been working on and mostly off for the last 3 or so years on a game, which will be releasing on Steam on September 2nd. You can find the link to the store page in the description, and if it looks interesting to you, you should consider wishlisting the game and buying it when it does release. The game will cost just $5 USD, so it's not too much of an investment, and it's the best way to support me and this channel for the time being. Big thanks to Nathan for writing the music for the game, as well as some help with programming. The game just wouldn't be the same without his contributions. Another thanks to Gabe for being my main gameplay tester, and his general encouragement on this and all my other projects for this channel. And for everyone who's taken interest in this channel and my work, thank you. Hopefully I'll have more to show you soon, but for now, I hope you enjoy my game.